I'm Corey Evan. Coming up in today's abbreviated Evan Miller Report, after King Abdullah, there is a new Saudi king, but very little prospect for change. The Supreme Court is set to take up lethal injections with the Oklahoma case. A senior U.S. diplomat is ruffling Cuba by meeting with dissidents. Oh dear. Expedia has acquired Travelocity in a $280 million deal. What does it mean for you? Listen to the business report and you'll find out. In lawsuits across America, a Pasadena, California Target employee committed suicide after being shamed, one suit claims. And the Duplass brothers have made a 4-movie deal with Netflix in entertainment. All that and more coming up in the Evan Miller Report, your conservative news source, starting now. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from Los Angeles. This is the Evan Miller Report on shrmedia.com. I'm Corey Evan in Los Angeles. Jason Miller in San Diego is off tonight as our San Diego bureau is down due to technical issues. But nonetheless, we do have half an hour of news to bring to you, starting with this one from the Christian Science Monitor. What does the death of King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, de facto ruler since 96 and formerly 2005 to 2014, mean for the world and the region? Already there are concerns that his successor, King Salman, is suffering from dementia. Abdullah had been in poor health for a long time, with the running of the country farmed out to other members of a vast dynasty. His predecessor, King Fahd, had likewise been out of touch for close to a decade at the time of his death in 2005. Yet Saudi Arabia has largely maintained the same path since Abdullah's father, Abdul Aziz al Saud, often called Ibn Saud, conquered the country and named it after his family in 1932. That is, a policy of redistributing oil wealth and giving a free hand to the country's Wahhabi clerical establishment in enforcing its harsh and uncompromising brand of Islamic law. Or as we like to call it here at the Evan Miller Report, global socialism! The death of a Saudi king always brings speculation about palace intrigue and potentially destabilizing conflict among the country's hundreds of princes over who should rule. But when the dust settles, the world's largest oil exporter reverts to the status quo. That said, the final years of Abdullah's ruler were unusually tumultuous ones for the region, with the 2011 uprisings in Tunisia, Bahrain, Libya, and perhaps most importantly, Egypt and Yemen, appearing to threaten the post-World War II order. Yet the Saudi state managed to avoid being forced into making changes at home and successfully worked to support the restoration of a friendly regime in Egypt under Fattah al-Sisi, the president who staged a coup in 2013. The Saudis dispatched troops to Bahrain to help a fellow Sunni monarchy crush political dissent, and the U.S., the kingdom's chief military partner, has largely abandoned the demands for democratic change in the region that characterized the first years of George W. Bush's presidency, shifting its focus back to maintaining regime stability and security. This turmoil occurred while Abdullah, Saudi's sixth monarch, was in his twilight and barely managing the kingdom's affairs, which strongly implies it will be business as usual under Salman, his half-brother. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said in a statement that Abdullah was, quote, a brave partner in fighting violent extremism who proved just as important as a proponent of peace, unquote. Now, brother, Mr. Kerry. Yes, and former President George H.W. Bush said in a statement that he was saddened by the passing of, quote, my dear friend, and called Abdullah a wise and reliable ally, helping our nations build on a strategic relationship and enduring friendship, unquote. Next up, out of Ukraine from the AP, pro-Russian rebels in eastern Ukraine rejected a previously signed peace deal Friday and launched a new multi-pronged offensive against Ukrainian government troops, upending recent European attempts to mediate an end to the fighting. The main separatist leader in the rebellious Donetsk region vowed to push Ukrainian soldiers out of the area and said insurgents would not take part in any more ceasefire talks. Another rebel went even further, saying they would not abide by a peace deal signed in September. Separatist leader Alexander Zakharchenko said rebel fighters went on the offensive to gain more territory and forestall a Ukrainian attack. He declared they would push government troops to the border of the Donetsk region and possibly beyond. The peace deal signed in September in the Belarusian capital of Minsk proposed a ceasefire and a pullout of heavy weapons from a division line in eastern Ukraine. It's been repeatedly violated by both sides, and heavy artillery and rocket barrages have increased the civilian death toll in the last few weeks. Foreign ministers from Russia, Ukraine, France, and Germany agreed Wednesday to revive that division line, but fighting has continued unabated. The UN Human Rights Agency on Friday raised its estimate of the conflict's overall death toll to nearly 5,100 since April. The tentative peace deal forged this week in Berlin called for Ukrainian troops and Russian-backed separatists to pull back their heavy arms 15 kilometers, or 9 miles, on either side of the line, although there was no agreement on a withdrawal of troops. But rebel spokesman Eduard Bazurin threw the agreement into doubt, saying the insurgents, quote, will no longer consider the Minsk agreement in the form it was signed, although he added they will remain open for peace talks. And as those talks continue, we will bring you the latest here on The Evan Miller Report or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. Next, out of Argentina from Reuters, Argentina suspects rogue agents from its own intelligence services were behind the death of a state prosecutor investigating the deadly 1994 bombing of a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires. Alberto Nisman was found dead in his apartment late on Sunday, a gunshot wound to his head, and a .22 caliber pistol by his side, along with a single shell casing. He had been scheduled to appear before Congress on Monday to answer questions about his allegation that President Cristina Fernandez conspired to derail his investigation of the attack. His death and a blizzard of conspiracy theories around it have rocked Argentina. The government says Nisman's allegations and his death were linked to a power struggle at Argentina's intelligence agency and agents who had recently been fired. It says they deliberately misled Nisman and may have had a hand in writing parts of his 300-page complaint. Argentine courts have accused a group of Iranians of planting the 1994 bomb, which killed 85 people. Nisman claimed last week that President Fernandez opened a secret back channel to Iran to cover up Tehran's alleged involvement in the bombing and gain access to Iranian oil needed to help close Argentina's $7 billion per year energy deficit. Fernandez's government called the accusation absurd. Iran has repeatedly denied any link to the bomb attack. The Argentine government's chief of staff said on Friday that he didn't believe Nisman even wrote his own report. Although the government says there was a conspiracy to falsely accuse the president and then do away with Nisman, no one has been arrested in the case so far. Coming back to the U.S. from NBC News, the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to review Oklahoma's system for execution, the first time it's taken up such a case since rejecting a challenge to lethal injections in 2008. In a one-line order issued late Friday, the court said it would hear a case brought by 3 death row inmates who say the 3-drug combination Oklahoma uses to carry out capital punishment is unconstitutional. The 3-drug process used by Oklahoma prison officials for carrying out the death penalty has been widely debated since the April 2014 botched execution of inmate Clayton Lockett, a convicted murderer. He could be seen twisted on the gurney after death chamber staff failed to place the IV properly. The inmates challenging the state's procedures argue that the sedative used by Oklahoma, midazolam, cannot achieve the level of unconsciousness required for surgery and was therefore unsuitable for executions. On January 15th, the High Court declined to halt the execution of another Oklahoma inmate, Charles Warner, who was convicted of raping and murdering an 11-month-old baby. The court was divided 5-4, with Justice Sonia Sotomayor writing a dissenting opinion. Although 5 votes are needed to grant a stay application, only 4 are required for the court to take up a case. The inmates say the 3-drug protocol used by the state can cause extreme pain in violation of the U.S. Constitution's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. After the Lockett execution, the state revised its protocols by increasing the amount of midazolam used to render an inmate unconscious. Lower courts signed off on the change, as did the divided Supreme Court. In her dissent in the Warner case, Sotomayor said she was deeply troubled by this evidence, suggesting that midazolam cannot be constitutionally used as the first drug in a 3-drug lethal injection protocol. The inmates want the court to decide whether its 2008 decision in a case called Bays v. Rees, in which the justices upheld the 3-drug execution protocol used by Kentucky, applies to Oklahoma's procedures. Lawyers for the inmates say the Oklahoma protocol is different, so the reasoning of the 2008 ruling should not apply. The inmates are Richard Glossop, John Grant, and Benjamin Cole. Glossop, who arranged for his employer to be beaten to death, is scheduled to be executed on the 29th. Grant, who stabbed a correctional worker to death, is due to be put to death on February 19th. Cole, convicted of killing his daughter, is scheduled to be executed on March 5th. Now, not to be judgmental, but myself, all of these cases, I say they should just go ahead and carry out the executions, but especially the one of Mr. Cole killing a 9-month-old. That's just pathetic. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sticking to it. Oh yeah. Next up, for the first time in nearly 40 years, Joseph Sledge woke up behind bars with a chance of becoming a free man. This from the AP. The 70-year-old man needed one more win at an innocence hearing. As 3 judges listened to closing statements Friday about how Sledge was wrongfully convicted in the 1976 stabbing deaths of a mother and her adult daughter, he wrote down a few words on a yellow post-it note. Closure, please, and exonerated. A few hours later, carrying his belongings in plastic bags, Sledge emerged from a North Carolina jail, saying he was looking forward to what most people consider the most mundane of activities. Going home, relaxing, sleeping in a real bed, probably get in a pool of water and swim for a little while. A special 3-judge panel unanimously voted that Sledge had proven he was innocent of the killings and ordered his release. But his freedom almost didn't happen because evidence had been lost for years. His attorney, Christine Mumma, took the case in 2004 and felt like she had been running out of options and considered closing the case in 2012. Then court clerks discovered a misplaced envelope of evidence while cleaning out a high shelf of a vault. The envelope contained hair found on the victim and believed to be the attacker's that turned out to be a key piece of evidence needed to do DNA testing, which wasn't available when Sledge went on trial in 1978. In 2013, the case was referred to the North Carolina Innocence Inquiry Commission, the only state-run investigative agency of its kind. So far, Sledge is the 8th person exonerated after an investigation by the commission, which started operating in 2007. It's reviewed about 1,500 cases. Nationwide, the Innocence Project said there have been 325 post-conviction DNA exonerations. The North Carolina Commission found there was enough evidence of Sledge's innocence to refer it to a panel of 3 judges who were appointed by the state Supreme Court. The judges considered the commission's investigative file, and a DNA expert highlighted lab tests in her testimony Friday. Megan Clement of Cellmark Forensics said none of the evidence collected from the scene, hair, DNA, or fingerprints, belonged to Sledge. The key jailhouse informant, Herman Baker, signed an affidavit that year recanting trial testimony. Baker said he lied at the 1978 trial after being promised leniency in his own drug case, and he said he'd been coached by authorities on what to say. Testimony from another jailhouse informant was inconsistent according to the commission documents. That informant died in 1991. Well, congratulations, Mr. Sledge, and let us hope that this is a case that convinces other people not to lie in similar cases if they're going to be pulled as a witness. Remember, the truth sets you free. The NFL's initial Deflategate investigation found that the New England Patriots played the first half of last week's AFC Championship game with underinflated footballs, but that the balls were properly inflated for the second half of the game, the league said in a statement released Friday. This according to USA Today. The league's investigation continues and will be led by NFL Executive VP Jeff Pash, along with attorney Ted Wells and an investigative firm specializing in forensic evidence. Wells was tapped by the NFL last year to conduct an investigation into the Miami Dolphins locker room culture after its bullying scandal. Patriots owner Robert Kraft released his own statement Friday. I instructed our staff to be completely cooperative and transparent with the league's investigators. During the 3 days they were here, we provided access to every full and part-time employee the league's representatives requested to speak with and produced every communication device that they requested to search. It is an ongoing process that the league and our team are taking very seriously, said Kraft. The league said it has already conducted nearly 40 interviews, including meeting with Patriots personnel, game officials who worked the AFC Championship game at Gillette Stadium, and other third parties with relevant information. And forgive me for being a little bit local with this next story, but it's one that should ruffle your feathers, or muss up your fur. This one coming to us from the Press Enterprise out of the Inland Empire. Karen Cochrans made her way to the San Jacinto, California police station Thursday afternoon with her daughter and 2 young grandsons, each carrying a gift and a heavy heart. The Hemet woman and her family placed flowers and balloons at a makeshift memorial joining other mourners offering support after a police dog was killed in action. The dog was named Sultan. He was a 3-year-old Riverside County Sheriff's Department canine who was killed Wednesday by a suspect with deputies. The suspect was later fatally shot by said deputies. Authorities have disclosed few details surrounding the incident, located in an unincorporated area near Hemet. The names of the suspect and the deputies who shot him have not been released. As is procedure, the deputies involved in the shooting were placed on paid admin leave, according to Sheriff's Department spokesman Albert Martinez. According to a Sheriff's News release, deputies responded to the area of San Jacinto Street and Clark Drive at 2:30 p.m. Wednesday looking for a wanted felon. And because of the confined space, the dog was sent in. The animal returned with a neck injury, the release said. He was taken to an area veterinary hospital, where he died. And as a friend of mine at work said, killing a police canine is akin to killing an officer. And as for the man that caused this dog's death,
good riddance.
And on that note, it's time to take a break. But when we come back, I have your business report, including Expedia acquiring Travelocity. Will that affect your travel? Maybe if you're one of their customers. I'll be covering for Jason Miller with your DC news, including a U.S. diplomat ruffling Cuba's feathers by meeting with dissidents. All that and more are coming up in the Evan Miller Report. You're listening to SHR Media. We'll be right back.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right.
It's a bit of a mixed bag on the stock markets as we return to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Corey Evan with your business report. The Dow was down 141 points at 17,672. The S&P 500 was down 11 points at 2051. But the Nasdaq managed to push against the grain and ended up 7 points at 4757. According to USA Today, those stock losses accelerated in late afternoon trading today as Wall Street snapped a 4-day winning streak but still saw weekly gains. The declines were led by the materials and telecom sectors. Tech stocks were one of the few bright spots. Oil prices initially spiked in reaction to news that Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah died, but analysts say the king's death is unlikely to change Saudi's high oil production levels, a key factor in the collapse in oil prices in the past 6 months. U.S. benchmark crude gained as much as $1.45 in early trading before pulling back and was trading down 52 cents to $45.80 a barrel. A 3-year winning streak for sales of previously owned homes in the U.S. ended in 2014 as some investors stepped out of the market and first-time buyers failed to fill the void. This from Bloomberg. Purchases totaled 4.93 million last year, down 3.1% from the 5.09 million houses sold in 2013, according to the National Association of Realtors, showing the share of American home buyers making their first purchase dropped in 2014 to its lowest level in almost 3 decades, according to the Realtors Group. At the same time, employment gains, growing consumer confidence, mortgage rates at historically low levels, and government efforts to lower purchasing costs probably will help bolster demand in 2015, they say. But as you know, ladies and gentlemen, we here at the Evan Miller Report are still skeptical of that, so we will keep a sharp eye on house prices and purchases, and we will update you as appropriate. Expedia has acquired online travel agency Travelocity from technology company Sabre for $280 million in cash, the company said in a statement on Friday, as consolidation in the online booking industry continues. This from CNBC. The deal follows a 2013 marketing agreement in which Expedia's tech-powered platforms for Travelocity's US and Canadian websites, while Travelocity drove additional web traffic to Expedia. The merger marks further consolidation in the online booking space, which has seen a number of acquisitions from Expedia's main competitor Priceline, including its $2.6 billion takeover of restaurant reservation website OpenTable last year. Travelocity is likely to maintain its unique brand within the umbrella of Expedia, according to Amobi. Sabre's chief executive Tom Klein said the company's primary focus remains to be the providing of mission-critical software solutions to its global travel customers. Right, that is your business report. I'm Corey Evan, saying let's go to D.C. First up, from Reuters, a senior U.S. diplomat in Cuba for negotiations with Havana on restoring long-frozen diplomatic relations met a group of dissidents today seeking to underline Washington's concern over human rights, but irritating the island's communist government. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Roberta Jacobson, the highest-ranking U.S. government official to visit the island in nearly 40 years, held a breakfast meeting with the dissidents a day after talks with Cuban government officials. The State Department said it was an opportunity for Jacobson to exchange views and hear their perspectives. But Havana has stressed that efforts to normalize ties should not be accompanied by meddling in its internal affairs. The DNC announced Friday that next year's Democratic National Convention will be held the week of July 25, 2016. 3 cities, Columbus, Ohio, New York, and Philadelphia, remain in contention to host the convention. The DNC is expected to announce its pick for host city in the coming weeks. And from the Christian Science Monitor, Sarah Palin 2016. Is there a possibility? The former VP candidate and ex-Alaska governor hinted on Thursday that she might, just might, give electoral politics another try. ABC's Neil Karlinsky caught up with Miss Palin while she was serving wild boar chili to the homeless in Las Vegas, and they're not making that up when they say that. It is wild boar. And I bet it's tasty. Mr. Karlinsky asked her if she ever mulled over a White House bid. Palin was quoted as saying, quote, "Yeah, I mean, of course, when you have a servant's heart, when you know that there is opportunity to do all you can to put yourself forward in the name of offering service, anybody would be interested," unquote. Pressed as to the nature of her interest, Palin continued with, quote, "America's had enough of seeing that sign on the Oval Office door saying, 'No girls allowed.' I know that," unquote. Right, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and come to order. Lawsuits across America is now in session. First item on the docket from CNN. 2 former athletes who took so-called paper classes at the University of North Carolina have filed a suit against the school and the NCAA, claiming they represent hundreds of thousands of college athletes across the nation who are promised an education, but don't get one. Devin Ramsey and Rashonda McCants filed the class action lawsuit in North Carolina Thursday afternoon, leaving open the possibility for more athletes to join them. The suit doesn't just go after the paper class scandal at North Carolina, which experts say is the worst case of academic fraud in NCAA history, but says that cheating is a fundamental flaw of the amateurism model in college sports. It says the UNC and the NCAA have, in spectacular fashion, broken the promise to give athletes an education in return for keeping the millions of dollars generated each year from revenues. Washington attorney Michael Hausfield is the lawyer behind the suit, and he's already got a winning record against the NCAA. Last summer, he changed the face of college sports when he convinced a judge that the NCAA violated antitrust law when it banned universities from paying athletes for the use of their images. Next up from the AP, out of Jacksonville, Florida, an elderly woman who was paralyzed after a Jacksonville car crash filed a lawsuit this week against Honda and Takata, saying she became a quadriplegic because of her too powerful airbag in her Honda Civic. Jay. Pamela Mincy filed a 60-page lawsuit Wednesday related to her accident last June at the intersection of Rampart and Collins Roads. She said the airbag in her 01 Honda Civic deployed late and violently. Oh dear, Jay. But on a much more somber note, the mother of a former cashier at Target in Pasadena, California, is suing the retailer, alleging that her son committed suicide after being humiliated by management. This according to ABC Los Angeles. In the lawsuit, Virginia Gentles claims her son, 22-year-old Graham Gentles, was driven to suicide after he was accused of stealing, handcuffed, and paraded through the store in front of co-workers and customers. Graham Gentles jumped to his death from the roof of the Courtyard Marriott in Monrovia on July 18th, 3 days after he was allegedly required by Target management to take part in what the lawsuit calls a walk of shame. The lawsuit alleges false imprisonment, negligence, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Gentles was taken downtown, but he was released the same day and never charged. The suit says Gentles, who had Asperger's syndrome, experienced severe emotional distress following the arrest. Target released a statement today saying, quote, "Our thoughts and sympathies go out to the friends and family of this individual. As this is pending litigation, we don't have further comment at this time." But when you do have further comment, Target, I will be listening, because I know things are not going very well for you, as I noted previously that you guys are pulling out of Canada. But you can't act like this with every single case of suspected theft, because you never know if someone working for you has Asperger's disease. I'm not calling you guilty because I believe in innocent until proven guilty, but I'm just saying, careful, guys. And on that note, it's time to declare lawsuits across America case dismissed. And from Entertainment Weekly, Netflix, which already has a series of Adam Sandler movies lined up, is going indie for its next film deal. The streaming service has enlisted Jay and Mark Duplass for a 4-movie deal. The brothers will executive produce the films, which will premiere on Netflix after a limited theatrical and transactional window. There's no timeline yet for those releases. The brothers, who are known for their films like The Puffy Chair, Cyrus, and Jeff Who Lives at Home, recently debuted a new series on HBO, Togetherness, in which Mark stars. The news follows Amazon's recent announcement that it will produce and acquire original films. Aside from Sandler movies, Netflix announced last year it is also partnering with the Weinstein Company to release a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon sequel. Amazon, Netflix, would you also happen to be doing any game show deals? 'Cause if you are, I've got a good one for you. Call me. And coming up this weekend at the box office, Johnny Depp and Gwyneth Paltrow appear together in Mordecai, which, judging by the theatrical poster, Johnny Depp, this is probably the bravest movie you've ever done. Also, The Boy Next Door with Jennifer Lopez and Ian Nelson, and Strange Magic with Alan Cumming and Evan Rachel Wood, none of which the critics say you should see, but I say, if you want to see them and let me know how they were, go ahead. Right, that is your entertainment report, and that is the Evan Miller Report for this Friday, January 23rd, 2015. Hey, listen to me tomorrow afternoon on the SHR Weekender at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. And of course, we will meet you again here on Monday for another edition of the Evan Miller Report. Hope to talk to you then. Till then, I'm Corey Evan.
You've been listening to the Evan Miller Report. For more information about today's program, go to shrmedia.com or thepunditpress.com. Thanks for listening. Hope you tune in again next time.